highest. Rise to your highest being. 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 Rise to your highest being.
Welcome back. So good to see you. The question of the day, is God still big enough? That's my question. Is God still big enough? Now, I ask that question because of the way our minds work. As I look back over the evolution of Western civilization, I have noted that there have been many changes in our concept of God. I mean, thousands of years ago, the concept of God was in the form of the various forces of nature. We had the rain god and the fire god, the animal god that provided food. It all came down to the fact that we realized that we were surrounded by forces much greater than we were, and we sought their assistance as we learned to live on earth. Then, as we evolved, those forces surrounding us became personas that we called God. The Egyptians had a set of gods. They had Osiris, one of Egyptians' most important deities. He was the god of the underworld. He was also symbolized death and resurrection, the cycle of the Nile floods that provided Egypt with its agricultural richness. Then there was Isis. Isis was one of the most important goddesses of the pantheon. She was the wife of Osiris. And when somebody killed Osiris. When Osiris was killed and dismembered, she put him back together, and then they worked and had the child Horus, which was another great god. When we move on to let's see, Horus, sky god. Horus was the sky god of war and hunting. Then we went on to Babylonia. Babylonia had Marduk, who was the most powerful god in the Mesopotamian region. Then we went on to Greece, and in Greece they had Hermes. Hermes was the god of trade, thieves, travelers, sports athletes, guide to the underworld, messenger of the gods. Hermes became Mercury in the Roman pantheon. There was Poseidon, the Greek god of the sea and earthquakes. There was Zeus, the great god of the sky and lightning and thunder, father of all the gods. In Rome we had Jupiter, and we had Juno, and we had Minerva, and we had Venus. They were all over the place, weren't there? But it came down to the fact that, one, most importantly, we always honored the fact that we were not the most powerful beings in the world, that we had these powerful forces around us that we had to pay attention to, that we had to honor, and that we had to seek assistance from. They were always personifications. They were always something that we could grasp in our minds. Grasp in our minds. When by grasping them in our minds, we sort of claimed them. But then came Akhenaten in Egypt for a while. Akhenaten was a pharaoh who said that there's only one God. And that God was the sun god. There were images of him with the sun god, with hands reaching out from the sun to all the to the rest of the world, and he abolished all the other gods, which probably accounted for the shortness of his life. I mean, he took power from all the other clergy, priests. They were all the other priests, which they did not like, and they were very powerful. And Akhenaten disappeared. We don't really know how he died. We just know that he wasn't there for a very long time. Or he wasn't there long. And when he left, the god, I guess he called him Amun-Ra, disappeared, and the old ones came back. So, but that was the beginning of the concept that there is only one. Then shortly thereafter, probably at the same time as I recall, because we're talking 6,000 years ago. Yeah, it was a little after Akhenaten. We got the Hebrews, and the Hebrews introduced their one God, who was called Yahweh. We also know him as Jehovah. And Jehovah became their one God, and through many wars, and both within the Hebrew civilization and outside of it, all these battles down to who was in charge, and it came out, eventually Jehovah won, Yahweh won, and Yahweh became preeminent. And that is the basis of the one God that we are working with now. Then Jesus entered the picture, and Jesus entered as the Son of God, and Jesus changed the concept, because we came out of, during all this time, we came out of the position of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. We were very barbaric. We were very barbaric, and so a vengeance was the name of the game. And Jesus came in, and he brought in a new concept. That concept was the one of love and forgiveness. New concept, hard to take. New covenant. Love God with all your heart and soul, and love your neighbor as you love yourself. And by neighbor, he meant everybody. And so love became the teachings of Jesus, and that began to spread. But even more controversial than that was, Jesus said the kingdom of God is within. How does the kingdom of God become within? That was a hard one to swallow. And he was crucified, of course, but that concept of the kingdom of God being within, and love being the answer, and forgiveness, they stayed. They didn't get wiped out with his crucifixion. They kind of grew and grew and grew until now that it's a worldwide movement. And even though we don't practice it. We don't practice love. We talk about it a lot. Our churches talk about it. But it's there. And also forgiveness. And what's so wonderful is that forgiveness is gaining strength, gaining power. We now see forgiveness happening in movies and in books and in speeches, and it's growing. It's growing. Forgiveness as a concept. Forgiveness is something that we should do for the sake of our own health. It's growing scientifically, medically, psychologically. Forgiveness is becoming so powerful within our civilization. So it is, aside from being wonderful, it is becoming a way of life. But back to the image of God. Okay, so Jehovah and Yahweh, after Jesus, became very much the subject of artist work, of artists, master painters. And so we began to get images of quote-unquote God as this old man, this old white man with beard, white robes, on a golden throne, surrounded by adoring angels. I've got images of that. Let me bring those up. Because of that, our concept of God became one of that was pretty standardized, that of the old man with the power of being up there, being a giant being with all this power that controlled so much and gave us so much, as we can see, as we recall with these images. But therein lies the problem. As we think about it, therein lies the problem, because when we think of the creator of the universe, the divine spirit, if you will, who created all things, all the things that we see and we know, the divine spirit that created us and oversees our lives, the divine spirit that influences every aspect of our world, we automatically see this old man with the white beard and the white robes. We automatically see that image of the divine being, the super being who is presiding over the world from his space in heaven. Keyword, presiding. The God of our childhood has always been perceived as separate from us. So he's presiding over everything, but he's not part of everything. Everything is, there is God and there's everything else. It's not all one, but it's God and everything else. So we were free to call upon him for help. We were free to pray to him for salvation. We looked up to him as our protector and our nurturer. But the truth of it all was that God was out there somewhere, not here. We were here, he was there. We were his children, but we were separate. Keyword, separate. So, as we now move to a higher level of spiritual consciousness, which is part of our natural spiritual revolution, remember, we keep changing, we're growing, we're expanding. So we came from those thousands of years ago when we were looking at God as the forces of fire and rain and lightning and animals, etc., till we've moved now all the way up into this vision of Jehovah, but moving beyond Jehovah, where we were, with Jehovah we were separated and we were helpless children, we are now beginning to understand that we are more than that. And if we are more than that, my question becomes, is God, as we knew him, enough? Is he big enough? And I say no. I say no because we have come to learn that we are imbued with an energy that connects us to everything and anything around us. We now know, because of science has shown us, that we at the subatomic level are not separate from anything. Everything is connected. Everything. Not only that, we've learned that the vast emptiness of space, that quote-unquote vacuum of space, is not so much a vacuum at all. It ain't empty. I mean, yeah, there are the stars and the galaxies, but as far as we knew, the stars and the galaxies were separate from each other. And now we know that that's not true. Now we have created instruments that are sensitive enough to see more, much, 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 much more than our eyes could see. And this is what the universe really looks like. We are connected. They are connected, these galaxy clusters are connected to each other by a vast network of filaments. They're not visible to us until we created instruments that were sensitive enough to detect them. And now as we look at new images of the universe, we can see that everything is connected. Everything is connected. In fact, the new images of the structure of the universe look a lot like the structures of our brains. Check this out. Our brains and the universe look a lot alike. Everything is connected. Everything is connected. For everything is connected. Everything is connected. For me, that gave new significance to the Bible passage in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verse 26, where God said, "Let us make man in our own image, in our own likeness." They look a lot like each other, don't they? The structure of our brain is a miniature copy of the structure of the universe. And one of the things about the universe that had scientists baffled is that 95% of the universe is invisible to us. Invisible. We think we see everything, and we see nothing. There is so little that our eyes can see, it is mind-boggling. We see nothing. 95% of the universe is invisible to us. There is so much going on around us, it would amaze us. So now there's a new school of science that has determined that what they couldn't see is something called plasma. Plasma is what makes up the stars. Plasma is what makes up the universe. 99% of the universe is made up of plasma. Now, I don't really know how to describe plasma. It is, according to science, it is ionized, an ionized substance that is finer than anything else that exists. It is electrical. It is. Some say it is alive. Plasma is alive. It's an invisible substance that is creative. It's creative, and I say it's creative because one of the things plasma does is it's continually creating something called dust. Science thought all the dust out there in the universe was something that happened with the Big Bang and was somewhat static, but dust is being created continually by plasma. And the amazing thing about this dust is that it clusters, it forms clusters, and those clusters reformat into, what is it called, double helix. It's formed into double helix formations. Double helix, that's the formation of DNA. Double helix, the basis of life. It's just being formed out there in the middle of nowhere by plasma, which is 99% of the universe. So this matter that becomes life is all over the place. It is everywhere. Everywhere. All this connectivity, all this electromagnetic energy, we have plasma creating life. Life. And so that means life can form anywhere at all in the universe. Life can form. And even more startling than that is that below all that, I mean, plasma is not the basis of it all. There is something below plasma that plasma is formed from, and that form, that source energy, if we can call it that, we're running out of words. There is no vocabulary to explain what we're dealing with here. But the basis of the plasma, which is the basis of matter, is consciousness. Consciousness is the basis of everything. Everything that exists comes from consciousness. Every single millimeter of the universe is conscious. It's like a universal brain out there. It's conscious. The basis of plasma is consciousness. Everything exists comes from consciousness. Therefore, everything that exists has a consciousness. Everything that exists has a consciousness. Now, I know that is a difficult concept to accept. And when we get down into the weeds, and I do literally mean the weeds, we begin to learn that even the weeds, the plants, not only have consciousness, but they communicate with each other. Plants communicate with each other. They communicate through their root systems. They have a language. It's not verbal, it's chemical. They have a chemical language as they transmit information to each other through their root systems. They can communicate danger, they can communicate changes that they can make together in order to repel insects that could be harmful to them. They know how to make changes. They know how to communicate with each other. As people who work with gardens, who work with flowers, they know that plants are responsive. Animals also communicate. We know that. Animals communicate in many ways, but one of the amazing ways that animals communicate is something called anthropomorphic fields. Now what that is this was discovered by a physicist, scientist, biologist by the name of Rupert Sheldrake. And Dr. Sheldrake discovered that if a set of animals learns a new behavior, they solve a problem that they all have. If a set of animals solve that problem, then they teach each other how to solve the problem. And the amazing thing is that once that new knowledge reaches a certain level of the population, a certain number of them have learned to take care of this, then suddenly, boom, the entire population, not just in this local area, but the entire population of that animal species suddenly knows the answer that this group has discovered. Boom. There was called, Ken Kesey called it the 100th monkeys theory. That is, if on an island, monkeys learned how to peel bananas in a way that was easier than they had before. When you get to 100 monkeys, suddenly all the monkeys in the world know how to peel bananas in that way. The 100th monkey theory, which Dr. Sheldrake named the anthropomorphic fields. And each animal species, including humans, have that anthropomorphic field, and they spread the knowledge in that way, because each species has its own frequency. At the atomic level, this is called the entanglement theory. Now, at the atomic level, the entanglement theory it states that if an atom has contact with another atom, and then they are separated, and it doesn't matter how far that separation is, hundreds of miles away, thousands of miles away, when you do something to one atom, the other atom reacts instantly. One atom reacts, the other atom reacts instantly, faster than the speed of light, instantly, no matter how far apart they are. And this sort of validates the stories, about, say, twins. Remember the story of the Corsica twins, where when one of the twins felt pain, when one of the twins felt something, the other twin automatically felt it at the same time. The Corsica twins. But there are other twins who have experienced that because they were twins, they were connected in more than just looking alike. They were connected on a subatomic level, where they felt what the other was going through instantaneously. Not just with twins, that there's the stories of mothers who felt their children, and what their children were going through. I can remember when I was working for the city and county of San Francisco, I can remember that one of my staff had the experience of his wife waking up. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. She was in total distress. Something is wrong with our son. And she's pacing, and she was worried. And it went on like that. He kept trying to say, no, it's nothing, it's okay, it's okay. No, there's something wrong, something's happened. 3 hours later, they finally get a call. Their son is in Texas in a hospital. And what had happened was that he was on a motorcycle trip, and a car sideswiped him and knocked him into a ditch. And he was there, nobody could see him, but this motorist came by, drove by, and saw the motorcycle lying on the side of the road, so he stopped to investigate, and then he found the son in the ditch. And he was able to get him out of the ditch and take him to the hospital. When that accident happened, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock, the same time the mother woke up. So she knew instantly that something had happened to her son. We're all connected. All connected. Some of us are more connected than others, but we are all connected. It's the entanglement theory. So, as we learn more and more about the structure of the universe, as we learn more and more about the structure of us, our concepts that the possibility of the universe is a conscious entity becomes more and more feasible. Now for me, my concept of God as total consciousness began to enter my mind when I was into my late 40s. At that time I was doing a lot of deep meditation. I was doing a lot of ritual, mystical ritual, and so my mind was in a state of evolution and becoming more and more aware of not only the world, but aware of the forces around me. I'm aware of the internal processes in my life, aware of how the higher forces of the universe were connected to me and were contacting me. I still saw God as that old white-haired figure, but he was no longer far away in heaven. No, now he was with me. In fact, he was inside of me somehow. And there were times when I could actually feel that presence. And that presence, I remember, led me through my mind, led me through imagery that I had nothing to do with, led me to begin teaching courses on how to work with angels. And it was during that period where there was a one weekend when I was doing some deep isolation rituals, deep meditation on a continuous basis with no outside contact. I had sealed myself off from the world when deep in one meditation one night, because it was over a long weekend. So deep in meditation on that first day, I heard a voice. The voice said, "There's nothing that is not God." Mentally, I rejected that statement. And the voice repeated, "There is nothing that is not God." And again, I rejected the statement. And as I rejected the statement more and more voices joined in until it became a chorus of voices saying, "There is nothing that is not God." And I can remember coming up with objections as to, well, what about this and what about that? How can you say it because of this? And more voices repeated over and over, "There is nothing that is not God. There is nothing that is not God." And these voices continued this chorus for 3 days. 3 days. Everything I could think of to reject their argument or counter their argument was met with, "There is nothing that is not God." I mean, by the end of those 3 days, it was like this infinite, it was incredible. All these voices, thousands and thousands of voices in harmony saying, "There is nothing that is not God." I was surrounded by them, and they went on and on and on out into the universe. There is nothing that is not God. Until finally, after 3 days, because I didn't get any sleep, finally after 3 days, that concept sank deep into my consciousness, and I knew that there was nothing that is not God, and that image of that old man with the white beard began to fade away because it didn't fit any longer. It did not fit any longer. It wasn't big enough. It wasn't big enough. In its place entered the words cosmic consciousness, universal consciousness, infinite mind, universal mind, infinite intelligence. All those terms begin to make more sense than quote-unquote God. God was not big enough. God was not big enough. Infinite intelligence had replaced God, because infinite intelligence was the truth of what was. It began to make sense for me, because I began to realize that consciousness permeates everything. It is not some figure that I can form in my mind. You see, because when you form an image in your mind, you make it finite. You make it finite so that your mind can conceive it. But infinite intelligence cannot be conceived by your mind, because it is much, 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 much too big. So when you see in your mind an image of God, that is much too small to convey the truth of your being. We live in a sea of consciousness. Consciousness permeates everything. Consciousness to us is like water to fish, but it's even more than that, because we ourselves are made of consciousness. We ourselves are individualized expressions of consciousness. And as we continue to explore, to discover the depths of our minds and bodies, we learn that our bodies are separate from our minds, that we are separate beings from our little tiny bodies. We are so much bigger than our little tiny bodies. We always thought that our brains were our minds, but now we know that our minds are so much more than our little tiny brains. Our little tiny brains are merely receivers of our mind, receivers of the information from our minds, because our minds are so much bigger than our brains. We thought our bodies were us, but now we know that our bodies are not us. We are much, much more than our bodies. Our bodies are merely these tiny vehicles into which we have squeezed our consciousness so that we can experience physical life. Physical life. And the purpose of physical life is to allow us to experience something that we would not be able to experience unless we were down at this very dense level. When I say dense, I mean slow vibration. Everything is vibrating at a very high speed, a very high rate of speed. But when we come into our bodies, into the denseness of solidity, we slow down our vibration. The vibration down here in the physical world is so slow. So slow. So even though their consciousness exists here, the vibration is so very slow. And it is only here where we can experience the pain. For it is indeed pain and suffering and conflict and trauma. We experience that down here at the physical level. Why would we do that to ourselves? Because that is the way that in which we strengthen our spiritual selves. That is the way we strengthen our spiritual capacity to love and forgive. We strengthen our capacity to love and forgive. And so we come down here into these little physical bodies that allow us to experience this thing called physical life. But once our bodies have served that purpose in this physical life, we let them go. We move on. We move back into being that spiritual being, that great spiritual being that we are. But having that experience has strengthened us in wisdom, has strengthened us in love, has strengthened us in our ability to forgive and know the truth about love. love. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. We are here for the sake of spiritual learning and growing, and wisdom and power and love, because what we experience here in our physical lives serves to expand us as spiritual beings of love. It is here that we learn to overcome pain and suffering. We go through it and it's so painful. I know it is so painful being here. But when we leave that body, that experience has strengthened us, has expanded us. And we go through it time and time and time again, and each time it expands us and strengthens us even more. Many, many lives we live, many, many physical lives we live, but it's for the purpose of strengthening our ability to love. Unconditionally love. It's really wonderful. Because after a point, even in physical life, you begin to understand this is not permanent. This is only a lesson. This is not as painful as I thought it was, because I know that this is only a lesson. This is something that I can rise above and will rise above, because I am a spiritual being having a human experience. I am one with consciousness. I am one with God. I am one with infinite intelligence. God, that word sneaks back in because we have been so conditioned to use it, but the truth of the matter is we're bigger. Infinite intelligence is so much bigger than quote-unquote God. Same concept. Divine. Infinite intelligence is divine. Infinite intelligence is love. Infinite intelligence is pure love. Pure love. And we are so privileged to be in a direct expression of that love. We are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. We are individualized expressions of infinite love. 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 Which brings me back to the question, is God still big enough? Look at that again. Is God still big enough? Or is it time that we embrace the truth of our being? We are spiritual beings having a human experience. We are individualized expressions of infinite intelligence. We are individualized expressions of love. And so as we become more aware of who and what we really are, as we become more aware of the love, the infinite love that is us, in spite of all the trials and the tribulations that we go through down here in this physical body in which we have placed ourselves, as we experience those pains and trials that we came down here to experience, because that is what we did. We came here to experience this. We came here, I guess, like lifting weights. Lifting weights makes us stronger. Experiencing this pain and tribulation that comes with this life makes us so much stronger in love. makes us so much wiser as the loving spiritual beings we are, so that we may help those others who are going through this trial as well. We bring peace, we bring love, we bring joy, because we are love.